as we have possibly I've been myself in a couple today. I'm sure you've been busy and all those kind of things. So as Graham says, one of the things that will really make it a little bit better for us all is if you do ask questions as you go. If anything doesn't make any sense that I say, please do let me know. Do ask for clarification of anything that isn't quite clear to begin with. If ever you've got any experiences of your own that you'd like to share with us, and by all means, please do. That'll only add to the content of the session. And I really hope that between us we can have a really good old time. To begin with, I'll just draw your attention to the ways in which you can find me in the world outside of this particular session. So my website, Twitter handle, and email address are on the screen. By all means, at any point during or after the session, feel free to send us an email over or tweet us or whatever if there's anything you'd like to discuss in more detail. If anything comes to mind in a couple of days' time, for example, once you've had a chance to have a think about things, then by all means let me know, and I'll try and answer any questions to the very best of my ability. Okay, let's get cracking. Let's move forward, and hopefully let's have a productive couple of hours together. So first of all, I suppose it makes a little bit of sense for me to talk through who I am and what I'm doing here and what on earth it is that qualifies me to speak to you about e-safety in schools. At the moment, I'm working for a large part of my time as an independent consultant. So I work with primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, foundation stage units, all kinds of places, and in a really sort of wide variety of roles, actually. So I often work with senior leadership teams and with those people trying to develop long-term strategies for integrating technology into schools. I also do an awful lot of work, you'll be pleased to know, about e-safety and embedding safer practice into a lot of different settings. Every single school being incredibly different, and therefore the way in which we approach that in every school is very different. And we'll talk tonight about some different approaches that we could possibly consider in a variety of schools. And also on things like embedding the new computing curriculum and pupil digital leadership models and all those kinds of things. So basically anything ed tech, I work with schools to try and improve, which is great. At the same time, I think it's really important, this second part, but I also do work part-time for a couple of days a week as computing leader at Fagley Primary School in Bradford. And for me, that's a really, really important part of the balance that I've got at the moment between the two parts of my working life. Because every single thing that I consult on in schools, it's not just conjecture, it's not some sort of idea that I've had and conceptually think that it might work. It's actually something that I've done myself, as a practicing teacher in a school, and I'm genuinely using my experience of the successes and failures I've had to inform the information that I give to other schools and to teachers and to head teachers and that kind of thing. So do be aware that this is something that I am actually practicing at the moment, and it's not some sort of haven't been in the classroom for 25 years jobby. So do be aware of that. A little bit about my background before we move on to the main content. The last year I spent out of the UK. Up until August last year, I was in Moscow as the head of ICT at a 0 to 16 international school, which was very different to anything that I'd done before, but an absolutely amazing experience. And one thing that I learned really quickly was just how successful through schools can be. It was the first through school that I'd been to in terms of the consistency of things like e-safety approach, where children are moving from different phases and key stages, and actually the way in which they can learn things and continue to learn things as they don't have to move to a variety of schools actually is really, really useful and really quite empowering for teachers and for children. So that was a really, really great experience. And before that, I worked as a local authority consultant for the City of Bradford Metropolitan District Council on a secondment for a couple of days a week, and that was for about 2 years, mainly working again in a strategic capacity with a variety of leadership teams trying to plan for improvements in technology, but also on a huge student digital leadership project, which I'll talk in a really, really sort of brief moment about later on. And prior to that, I worked in schools in Bradford, Stockport, Manchester, in a variety of ICT coordinator, manager sorts of roles. So I've had a fair old sort of range of experience within this sphere. So hopefully some of that experience will pay off and rub off at some points during this evening. Before we go any further, and to practice, I suppose, for those of you who maybe are new to this kind of Adobe environment, would you possibly be able to, in the chat box on the bottom right of the screen, let me know which kind of school you're in? So maybe a primary school, secondary school, special school, all those kinds of things. If you could let us know what kind of school it is you work in at the moment and what your role is within that school, that would be absolutely fantastic. That would be really, really helpful. And so I can see, Sarah, thanks very much for getting in there, telling us that you're working in a primary school. That's very helpful. If other people could add into that as well, that would be absolutely fantastic. Sarah's the IT coordinator. Hello, thank you for joining us. I'll give people another few seconds to add those things in. Lynn, thank you very much indeed. Maths and ICT subject lead, lovely, in a junior school. Very recently from Debbie as ICT coordinator, one of those head teacher conversations where you've just become it overnight, quite perhaps. Okay, and Shell computing coordinator. Okay, lovely. All right, well, that's a really interesting range of roles actually there within schools, but that helps me to be able to narrow the focus very slightly because you are all coming from primary school backgrounds, which will help me to understand where to pitch some of the conversations that we have. Okay, lovely. Well, let's press on then and begin the main content of the session. So I'm sure many of you will come to this with a very good starting point in terms of knowledge and understanding and experience. Perhaps some of you know this absolutely inside out, but I think it's really important that we begin the process of talking about this in terms of really understanding what it is we're trying to do and what it is we mean when we talk about e-safety. It's all well and good saying things like staying safe online, but actually it's a little bit more complicated than that, and we need to think about it in a lot of depth. So it really is about understanding that the measures that we do take, all they can do is minimize risk. Okay, and certainly when you're trying to explain to leadership teams, to head teachers, to governors, why a certain something slipped through the net, it's simply because it's impossible for certain things not to slip through the net. There is no such thing in the world as a completely secure system. I mean, it just doesn't exist. No one's invented one. There isn't one. So people in school, all stakeholders in school, need to understand that your job is to try and keep people as safe as is reasonably possible. Okay, the internet changes every 15 gazillionth of a second, and there's no way we can ever possibly keep up with it. Okay, and we all know that because we use it all the time. But of course, it's important to really focus our attention on that because we should never lose sight of the fact of how impossible the job is that we're trying to tackle because we simply can't keep up. Okay, so we must keep that in mind. However, of course, we still do need to do something that's really quite important here because this is such a huge task. So I've come up with some sort of definition as to what e-safety is and what it might all be about. And this is literally just something that I made up myself. I haven't got this from anywhere, so please feel free to agree or disagree with any element of it. The bit for me that is actually really, really, really important is the very first part of the sentence, where I suggest that it is about doing something and doing things that are reasonable, doing all that is reasonable to provide the tools and support to children and to adults. We mustn't forget that this is about keeping adults safe as well, in order that they can adequately understand and manage risks when using new technologies. Now, the understanding and managing risks bit is important, and the reasonable support is really important. And I'll explain why I think that, because we often lose sight of the fact that actually doing too much for children might actually be doing them a disservice. I don't actually think that we should be doing as much as we theoretically could be. And that sounds really controversial, and it isn't meant to be. It isn't meant to be a really provocative statement. What it is meant to be is something to make us think about what it is that we're doing when we're actually blocking content from children. So today's a really good example of this. I was working with a really lovely school in Manchester today, and in the school we tried to access a collaborative blog this afternoon that we're going to use as part of a project. And the technical support company that manages the filtering process in school has blocked access to all blogs. And the school has challenged this on a couple of occasions in the past. And the response is, well, no, actually, we don't think that they're safe to use. And that's quite a sad state of affairs, actually. And it's reminiscent of quite a lot of conversations I've had with teachers in a variety of places in the country. And I think it's sad that technical support providers are largely dictating education policy. because they're not educationalists. Generally speaking, that they're in technical roles. It's really important that they work with us as people who work in schools. That's really, really key. But actually, it should be teachers who are pushing the curriculum, pushing the ideas on how to use technology in the classroom. And if filtering and monitoring gets in the way of education, for whatever that actually means, in practical terms, then that's the wrong balance for me. Okay, we should definitely be talking about keeping children really safe, but actually we should be doing it with the end in